Cheap girls like you don't belong here. That's what my mother-in-law said, right after she slapped me. The room froze. One glass. One accidental knock. And the entire anniversary dinner turned into a courtroom. But no one defended me. Not even him. My husband just whispered. Just say sorry. Or leave. Hi everyone. My name is Mira. And this isn't a story about a broken glass. It's about the moment a woman realizes no one's coming to save her. Let me take you there. The house was glowing. Chandeliers, violin music, waiters in white gloves. It was my in-laws' 35th wedding anniversary. Everyone wore elegance like armor. Diamonds, silk, hushed tones. I had spent 3 days preparing. Pressed my best sorry. Picked simple jewelry. Even practiced how to serve drinks gracefully. Because in this house, dignity wasn't worn. It had to be proven. So when my hand trembled while pouring water, and that vintage crystal glass tipped over, I already knew. I knew the silence wasn't surprise. It was calculation. And she, my mother-in-law Isla Devi, stood slowly, placed her napkin down, walked across the table, then slapped me so hard even the ceiling fan seemed to flinch. My ear rang. But not louder than her voice. Cheap girls like you ruin everything. That was baccarat. Do you even know what that is? I didn't reply. I just looked at Arjun. My husband. His eyes didn't rise. They stayed fixed on the tablecloth. Like I was already gone. He didn't touch me. Didn't say my name. Only whispered, just say sorry, or leave. That's when I realized I was never part of this family. I walked out. No shoes. No purse. Just the sound of cutlery resuming behind me. Like my existence had been edited out. And as the gate clicked behind me and the cold air kissed my skin, I thought, what do you do when even your husband looks away? I didn't cry that night. But the next morning my phone buzzed so violently, it almost cracked the charger. 52 missed calls. All from one name I never expected. I stared at the screen. 52 missed calls. All from him. The same man who watched me get slapped, and said nothing. The man who asked me to just say sorry, like I was a stain. Now suddenly he needed to talk? I didn't answer. Instead I stood at the bus stop in my old college hoodie, gripping a cup of chai I bought with the last 50 rupees in my wallet. Hi again. Mira. And if you've ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace, even when your bones were shaking, say, same in the comments. Because that was me. A woman who had mastered silence. But that morning something inside me had cracked. Not because of the slap. Not because of the insult. But because of the stillness in Arjun's eyes. That was the worst betrayal. The silence of someone who once promised to protect you. A black SUV rolled to the curb. I flinched. It was him. He stepped out fast, breath fogging, eyes wide. Mira. Mira, please just listen. I turned my head. He grabbed my wrist. Get in the car. You're making a scene. A scene? They had humiliated me in front of 40 guests, and now I was the scene? No, I said, voice low. I'm not going anywhere. His expression twitched. I panicked. You broke her favorite glass. She broke me, I interrupted. And for the first time I didn't flinch when his face tightened. He lowered his tone. She's my mother, Mira. I took a long breath, stepped back. And I was your wife. But clearly one of those mattered more. Then I turned, climbed onto the bus. And didn't look back. Behind me he stood frozen in the fumes, still dressed in designer guilt. What Arjun didn't know is that while he slept comfortably last night, I spent hours awake, planning exactly what I'd do next. They wanted silence. I give them a storm. The bus rocked gently as I stared out the window, my fingers curled tightly around the pole. I didn't know where I was going. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. Back to that house. Back to the gold-plated insults. Back to being the outsider who was only welcome when quiet. I pulled my phone out. Still no message. Just those 52 missed calls sitting like guilt on the screen. And one photo. A photo I'd taken weeks ago. Arjun's mother holding a wine glass, the same one I had broken. Only this one was already chipped at the rim. Funny how details get missed in perfect households. Hi again. Still Mira. Still bruised. But not broken. I spent the day walking. From one alley to another. From bus stops to borrowed benches. And as the sun dipped behind dusty trees, I reached a small iron gate with peeling paint. My old music teacher's house. She had once told me, "When the world grows too loud, come find your quiet here." She opened the door, saw my face, and just opened her arms. No questions. No blame. Just soft light and warm lentils. That night I sat cross-legged on the floor and pulled out my journal. I hadn't written in months. But now the words spilled like a dam had burst. Plan. That's what I titled the page. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for proof. Of who I was. Of who they were. Because one day I would stand again in front of that chandelier-lit house. And every single lie they told about me would fall apart. One by one. First, I opened my email. Typed in a name I had buried for years. Reema Kapoor. My old college roommate. Now a senior editor at India Today. And in the subject line I wrote, "Let's talk about what happens behind perfect closed doors." Because I knew something they didn't. They had taught me how to serve tea. But they forgot I once knew how to write fire. Reema replied in less than 2 hours. "Come by tomorrow. I've always known you had a story worth telling." Her message felt like oxygen. Not because I wanted attention, but because someone finally believed me without needing evidence. I barely slept that night. Instead, I rewound every humiliation in that house. The comments, the looks, the silent wars disguised as etiquette. And I wrote. Every word sharpened by memory. Every detail exact. From the chipped plates I wasn't allowed to eat on, to the times they made me serve Arjun's cousins like hired help. Hi. So Mira. And if you've ever had your voice ignored long enough, you start sharpening it like a weapon. Reema welcomed me with open arms and hot coffee the next morning. "You look tired," she said. "I look free," I replied. She smiled. "Even better." I handed her my notes. She read in silence for 15 minutes. Then whispered, "This isn't just a story. It's a mirror." That week she worked with me, editing, fact-checking, verifying every name I chose to include. No bitterness. Just truth. Because I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. And clarity has a quiet way of exposing everything. One morning Reema looked up from the pages and asked, "You sure you want this published? Once it's out, there's no going back." I looked her in the eye and said, "There's nothing left to go back to." The story went live on the front page of the Sunday Lifestyle section. The price of silence. How families punish the women they invite in. I used a pen name. But every detail, every quote, every gesture, was real. By 4 p.m. it had gone viral. Thousands of shares. Hundreds of comments. Women writing. "This was me. Thank you for speaking when I couldn't." But the most unexpected part? That evening I got a text. From Arjun. Just 2 words. "You wrote that." I didn't reply. Because just below his message was another one. From his cousin's wife. The only one who'd ever whispered kindness to me once. I read it. "I knew you weren't lying." That night I slept with the window open. The world had seen the truth. And the house that silenced me had just started to crumble. The silence from Arjun's side didn't last long. By the next day my phone buzzed non-stop. Calls. Messages. Emails. First from him. Then from his mother. Then from numbers I didn't even recognize. I didn't answer a single one. Because for once I wasn't reacting. I was watching. Hi, still Mira. And if you've ever waited years for someone to notice you're in pain, only for them to care when others start watching, you'll understand what came next. By Tuesday Reema sent me a message. "Mira, you need to see this." A news clip. From a social media channel I didn't follow. A young journalist standing outside Arjun's family business. In light of the viral essay exposing toxic traditions in powerful households, we've received anonymous tips alleging labor issues at the Devi textile factories. More on this story as it develops. I blinked. I hadn't planned this. But truth doesn't knock quietly, it kicks down doors. Later that day my email pinged again. From Mrs. Ila Devi. Subject line, "Enough." I clicked. And I wish I could say her message showed remorse. But it didn't. It was one sentence. "Your little stunt has consequences. Don't forget where your bread once came from." Bread? I laughed. Out loud. This was never about bread. It was about dignity, The kind they tried to rip from my spine and serve on silver platters as a warning. Later that night I got a call from Rima. "Brace yourself," she said. Because tomorrow's follow-up piece wasn't mine. It was hers. And it wasn't about the broken glass anymore. It was about every woman who got slapped and told to smile. Arjun tried calling again. This time I picked up. He started with, "Mira, you don't understand." And I cut him off. "I do. I understand perfectly. You were never silent out of fear. You were silent because you agreed." He went quiet. I let the silence stretch. Then I ended the call. Because now, they weren't dealing with the cheap girl anymore. They were dealing with the voice they tried to erase. And I was just getting started. The next morning the headline hit harder than any slap ever could. "Silk and Silence. How the Devi Empire Covered Decades of Domestic and Workplace Abuse." By Rima Kapoor with exclusive insider testimony. I stared at the screen. There was no photo of me. No name. No direct quote. But everyone who had been at that anniversary dinner knew. I wasn't hiding. I was unapologetically present. In every word, every truth, every line that refused to whisper. "Hi. Mira." And today I wasn't trembling. I was watching a dynasty unravel thread by thread. By noon, 3 brands had pulled partnership deals with the Devi textile line. By 2 p.m. Isla Devi's name had started trending on Twitter. Not for her jewelry. Not for her gracious hosting. But for her rage. That evening I got another message. From Arjun again. "You made your point. Now please, stop." Stop? He hadn't said a word when I was slapped in front of his entire family. He hadn't blinked when his mother told me I was cheap. But now that the world was listening, now he wanted peace? I didn't reply. I simply forwarded the message to Rima, followed by a note. There it is. The sound of someone losing control. The next day something strange happened. My mother, who had always told me to stay quiet, adjust beta, called me. And cried. "I didn't know it was this bad," she whispered. "I'm sorry I didn't ask more." That cracked me. Because that was the first real apology I had heard in years. Not from the one who slapped me, but from the one who once believed I had married into gold. Turns out gold flakes easily when you touch it with truth. Later that night I sat on the balcony of my teacher's home. Cool breeze. A bowl of rice. Peace. And I whispered to myself. They wanted a silent daughter-in-law. But what they got was a woman with receipts, and a voice she wasn't afraid to use. The next blow didn't come from me. It came from within their own house. Late Friday night I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "It's Mira Bobby. I've stayed quiet too long." It was Arjun's younger cousin's wife. One of the few who used to glance at me with softness but never spoke much. He sent me a screenshot. A long WhatsApp thread among the Devi daughters-in-law. The messages spilled like confessionals. "She slapped me once too. They made me change my baby's name because it didn't sound elegant enough. I once served guests with a fever because Isla said, presentation over pain." Hi. Mira again. I didn't feel victorious. I felt heavy. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was a system, polished with silk, draped in gold but rotting from within. I asked her gently, "Why now?" Her voice note came a minute later. "I didn't know it was allowed to say something. Until you did." That's when I realized. My silence had never protected me. It had only protected them. By Sunday morning, the Devi family issued a public relations statement. Told, scripted, insincere. Read. "We are deeply saddened by recent misinterpretations and fabricated claims targeting our family legacy." I smiled bitterly. Because nothing terrifies the powerful more than a poor girl with the truth. Around noon I walked past their mansion. Just once. Not to gloat. Just to see it with different eyes. The white pillars. The trimmed hedges. Same as before. But now the windows felt hollow. The gates. Smaller. I was about to turn back when I heard a soft voice behind me. "Beta." I turned. It was Arjun's aunt, the one who always smiled too tightly. She looked tired. "Isla is not well," she said. "This whole thing, it's breaking her." I met her eyes. And what about all the women she broke? She had no answer. And I didn't wait for one. I walked away, calmly, silently. But in my heart something had shifted. They had built walls to keep women like me out. No. The final message came on a quiet Monday morning. A letter. Hand-delivered. No envelope. No stamp. Just a folded page that smelled faintly of jasmine and guilt. From Isla Devi. Written in clean cursive, like every word had been rehearsed 1,000 times. You have made your point. I see now that silence is not the same as peace. Maybe you never belonged here. Because you were always meant to belong somewhere greater. No apology. But not denial either. That was the closest a woman like her could come to surrender. Hi. Mere one last time. I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I just folded the letter and placed it inside the back of my journal. Right beside the photo of the chipped wine glass. 2 weeks later, Rima called again. Your piece opened floodgates. We've had over 70 submissions from women wanting to tell their own stories. I want to create a column. I want you to lead it. I said yes. Not because I needed to be heard, but because others did. Arjun never contacted me again. His silence, finally honest. The mansion went quiet. Their brand, still alive, but never quite the same. Because the internet doesn't forget. And somewhere in that too-polished house, they all now knew. You can humiliate a woman at your table. You can dismiss her. You can even slap her. But if she finds her voice, you'll hear it in every room long after she's gone. I moved into a small apartment with green windows and a chipped balcony railing. No chandelier. Just peace. I teach creative writing now. Sometimes women stay after class, not to ask about stories but to tell their own. And every time I listen. Because silence is no longer my language. The day I walked out I thought I was losing everything. But the truth is, that night I was born.